I'm sure there was going to be a big buzz next week in Winnipeg, is that Jets are now in the playoffs and see the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round. What do you think about this matchup that is going to get going on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the matchup. I mean, obviously, there's so many storylines, right? I mean, you got okay. First of all, the rematch from the 2018 Western Conference Final. I think that's probably chief among the storylines in Jets fans' minds for sure. You got Hellebuck versus Brossoit. You got Mark Stone. You got Jack Eichel playing in, I believe it's his first best of 7 series in his career. And I'm not even like I believe he was on that interview yesterday or 2 days ago. See, he's never played in a best of 7 in his life, right? Like, never in a best of 7 in his life. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, that's right. Because he was a guy or
right,
NCAA.
Exactly. So
no best of 7s there. You're playing one and dones.
Yeah, and to me, I think the biggest storyline coming into this, and people say that I'm negative and blah 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 about the team and whatever. I actually think the Jets have a chance in this series. Like, I legitimately think the Jets can do damage in this series. But they have to play the way that they've played for the past month. And if you look at the analytics from the Jets over the past month, they are the best expected goals team in the league. But nobody is. Well,
I was blown away. I was blown away when I saw that.
The best expected goals team in the league. They're the second best possession hockey team in the league over the last month. They've had the 9th best save percentage in the league over the past month. Like, this team right now, and forget everything that we've said over the last, especially during that 2-month stretch where they were one of the worst teams in the league at all these things. This team has, it's remarkable how they've come together to really turn into the team that I think we thought they would turn into, around in the February and the March, where they were January and February, where they were instead struggling, trying to find their game and all that. I think they found their scoring touch. The power play looks a lot better with Nikolai Ehlers. Not really running it, but he's like the second anchor on that power play, in my opinion, and the way that he has been used. The way that the fourth line has been constructed, that Morgan Barron and Kevin Stenlund, those guys are really not only I think they're pushing for offense, right? So you sort of have like these 4 lines that work right now. It's very intriguing to me what the Jets can do and the damage that they can do, because I don't think that Vegas really has the goaltending. And this is no slight against Laurent Brossoit, but he's not Logan Thompson and he's not Jonathan Quick in the playoffs. And so when you're not going to be playing those guys, there's going to be, to me, this is such a prove-it series for Laurent Brossoit. He wanted, obviously, to get more games, and when he left Winnipeg and all that sort of stuff, wanted more money, all that. I think he reinvented his career in Winnipeg. I think that's where he kind of catapulted off again. Obviously, he's had injuries and that sort of thing, but I think there's huge motivation. I know Connor Hellebuck and him are both good friends. They're represented by the same agent and all that kind of stuff. But this is a fascinating series between, the master and the protege, let's say. I think it's full of storylines, but I think for me, the biggest one is I think the Jets can actually compete in this series. And I know the regular season schedule will say that, it wasn't close. A couple of those games David Riddick played, so that's obviously not indicative of how Connor Hellebuck's going to play. But if the Jets can harness this last month of play, I think that they can. I think they can compete in the series. Am I ready to say they're going to win this series? I'm not sure yet. Still writing my game or my series preview and all that stuff. They're obviously not going to be the betting favorite in the series, Winnipeg. But I do think, honestly, that this team can compete in this series if they play like they have over the past month.
Yeah, and God knows we've talked about this, throughout the year. The roller coaster of the Jets season.
Yeah.
Is a story in itself. The unexpected, incredible start, the heights that they had coming into the new year, and then, really 2 months of subpar hockey that threatened everything that they'd done at the beginning of the season. But in some ways, Scott, I'm not sure. None of that matters once you drop the puck in game 1 of the first round.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of with you. What they had to do, coming together, getting back to what they did, players, key players, finding their way again and stepping up the way they did, honestly, I think that makes them a more dangerous team in this spot than if they had just kind of cruised through the last couple months of the season. I mean, they had to prove it to themselves and basically play playoff-type hockey games with that sort of pressure and intensity for the better part of the last 3 or 4 weeks, and they got the job done. And I'm sort of with you. I mean, if you want to look for storylines or reasons why the Winnipeg Jets will be a frisky underdog and a very difficult out, it's the fact that this team right now, the way they're playing, is not the team that was struggling as they did for 2 months. And Rick Bowness deserves a ton of credit, but it's also a number of guys in that dressing room that stepped up. And Connor Hellebuck, of course, is the backbone of this hockey club.
Well, he's the linchpin, right? Like, I mean, I think, if you look at his 13 games that he started since he started in that Boston game, at 5-on-5, .930 save percentage, 1.77 goals against average. I mean, those are game winning, those are playoff winning numbers, right? If you're looking for, you need a goalie to step up. Again, I think everything here is dependent on, the Jets not doing the Jekyll and Hyde thing that they did all season, right? I mean, that's really what they have to stay away from. But I think Connor Hellebuck knows he has something to prove in the playoffs because he hasn't been able to take this team, maybe carry this team on his back in the way that some fans would have liked to see in the playoffs. He's obviously been spectacular during the regular seasons, and many of them obviously played really well in that Edmonton series. I thought he outdueled Pekka Rinne in 2018 there. There is that, but when it comes down to it, he got outdueled by Carey Price in the one series, got outdueled by Marc-Andre Fleury. So I believe that there's something here for Connor Hellebuck to prove. The one thing, if there's a knock against Connor Hellebuck, I believe it's that he needs to put in that performance in the playoffs. And I think if he goes in the playoffs and drops a .930 on the power or on 5-on-5 and a 1.77 goals against, the Jets have every opportunity to win this series, and maybe not even in 7, maybe in 6, because I mean we know. I mean it's about the goalie oftentimes in the playoffs, and if the Jets are scoring at the rate that they are now, they have been, and they're getting that same goaltending, I hesitate to say the sky's the limit, because we're not too far removed from how bad this team looked. But if they've really sorted this out and they've done it before the playoffs, it's there, right? Like I do think it's there. I just think there's an opportunity for the Jets right now to take it if they can kind of harness what they have done over the last 30 days or so.
Listen, there's obviously a lot of things that are going to have to happen. Connor Hellebuck is going to need to be the best goalie in the series and maybe one of, if not the best player in the series for sure.
Yeah.
The Jets defense core, and I think that, I mean, certainly you'd give the nod to Vegas on the depth 1 to 6 of their defense.
Well, definitely. Yep.
But at the same time, I have to tell you, I mean, Josh Morrissey, we've talked all year about how he's elevated himself, and other key players. Neil Pionk has looked like a different player to me in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and that is absolutely huge because, he really did struggle at times, and a lot of those self-inflicted giveaways and turnovers were a reason why the Jets were, losing some games and giving ones up that you probably couldn't have. But I look at a player like Brendan Dillon. I look at guys, I mean, even Nate Schmidt with the way that he's been playing as of late and the steadiness of Dylan DeMello. And Dylan Sandberg has very quietly become, a guy that I think I'd be confident playing in my top 4, never mind on that third pairing. So they've been trending in the right direction. And so much of the playoffs is being your best and getting hot at the right time. And as much as it was painful for fans to go through, and certainly painful for guys in that locker room, I'm not sure that the adversity that they went through might actually make them a more dangerous team when we drop the puck next week.
Yeah, you hear players talk about this all the time, right? I mean, the worst time to go through adversity in this season would be now, right? They would be, the last couple games of the season, and it bleeds into the first couple games of the playoffs. If anything, and we'll find out at the end, but right now, if anything, the Jets might have gone through adversity at potentially the best time of the year. Not the best time of the year, I wouldn't say that, but at a time of the year that what worked for them, right? Like they were forced to look within and dig themselves out of this. There was a lot of noise outside from, all of us in the media, and fans were upset, and the boos and all that at the home games and everything like that. I mean, all that noise was there, and this team not only had to block out that noise, but try and find a way to, see through it, see the forest through the trees, and so to speak, to get through what they needed to get through. And maybe it's just scheduling or whatever. They were able to beat up on two teams on back-to-back nights, scoring 12 goals in those games that had played on back-to-backs. So that's it just worked out for this team. I think I look back at the goal that Mark Scheifele scored in Minnesota. It wasn't the goal, it had nothing to do with the goal. A great goal, obviously. I mean, nice play. But it was his reaction right after that goal, the celebration. I look at that celebration, and he's like sitting there. He's like, "Yeah, let's go," and like that's the celebration of an engaged Mark Scheifele, right? Mark Scheifele's back, and so when Mark Scheifele was gone for a while, I think we can all agree that benching in Carolina didn't have the desired effect.
Not really well.
From the coaching staff. But that goal that he scored and that celebration, and those are the times that were, your true kind of emotions take over. And I looked at Mark Scheifele there, and I was like, yeah, that guy's back, right? This is the Mark Scheifele at the beginning of the season who was well engaged and all that. Like, I don't know who got to Mark Scheifele. I don't know if Mark Scheifele got to himself. Whatever happened there, like Mark Scheifele's back, and so like that's a huge boon for this team to have. Because I think there's a large part of this team that, whether or not Mark Scheifele is the best leader or not, or whatever, we could all debate that stuff, whatever. But if Mark Scheifele is showing the way, I think a lot of people follow. And if we can all go back to the 2018 playoffs and remember how dominant Mark Scheifele was in the playoffs. And if you're getting that same mentality, Mark Scheifele, coming into these playoffs, I think there's a lot of potential here for this Winnipeg Jets team.
And let's think about where he's playing too. I mean, it was somewhat unconventional,
center, right?
You know what? And I mean, a lot of the things. I mean, listen, Scheifele we know has incredible offensive talents, and the numbers speak for themselves. Not necessarily the most trustworthy defensive player at such an important position. And in playoffs like this, when you're going against the number one team, those are big responsibilities. And putting him onto the wing right now, where maybe he doesn't have to bear as much of that against other top centers, and allowing Pierre-Luc Dubois to that, who could be very, very effective in both ends, along with a guy like Kyle Connor, who, to his standards, has had a subpar season. But you know how you take care of that? You have a monster playoffs, and no one gives a damn about what happened in the regular season. And this line is absolutely fascinating, Scott.
Yep.
They are going to need to produce and do all those things that, we were just mentioning. And then you go to the second line. And Nemetsnikov, I still can't believe what a steal he has been for the team and how versatile he's been. And, I mean, Blake Wheeler is going to need to, we'll see what we get out of Blake. I mean, he's had some real highs and some lows this year, but I think, like many of his teammates, has been playing certainly a heck of a lot better recently than he was during when the team struggled. And then there's Nikolai Ehlers. And I mean, fingers crossed that he'll be healthy and good to go. He's a guy that can basically control a line. But for me, where I really find a lot of optimism about this matchup, and actually never mind the matchup, regardless of who the Winnipeg Jets are playing, just the Winnipeg Jets as a team that could do damage in the playoffs, is actually focusing on the bottom six. And I mean, I don't know what more we can say about Adam Lowry. Yeah, he went forever without scoring a goal. But I mean, you take out that long stretch of the regular season, and you look at the two, like the start and the end, playing incredible hockey. And I would say this last month might be the best Adam Lowry we've ever seen. Doing it in both ends, that line is scoring goals. They've been living in their other team's end. And I got to tell you, regardless of last change, whoever that line is going up against, they are going to be a problem for, in this case, the Vegas Golden Knights. And it takes everyone. I've actually been really impressed with the fourth line, especially as of late. I mean, Sandy got a goal last night. Morgan Barron is, to me, the key guy on that line. But even Menelainen, with the size that he brings, I think back to Vegas when they beat the Jets in 2018. it wasn't all their top guys that were scoring the big goals. I mean, it was like Thomas Nosek. Every time I see that guy, I think back to like, how the hell was that? I mean, you need to get something for your fourth line, or at least stay even on that. And more so than certainly the last few seasons, I think that they are positioned to, have an impact on the game as well. And that maybe takes off some of the pressure that has traditionally been on that top line of the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to disagree with you for the sake of the show, but no, I can't. I mean, I can't because here's the thing. I mean, I think the common denominator of Adam Lowry's good play throughout his career has always been the consistency of his line mates, right? The problem with Adam Lowry is that he is viewed as like almost like a gatekeeper, right? Like, okay, give me this guy. We're going to give you Adam Lowry. You're going to improve your game. Then you're going to move up the lineup. We're going to give you Adam Lowry. You're going to improve his game. You're going to move him up the lineup. This has happened throughout Adam Lowry's career here. He's been such a stalwart as a third line center, but I think he also falls victim to being kind of this center that can really kind of bring other guys along with him. And so, but now you're seeing just a third line, and let's not take anything away from anybody else, because I think Nino Niederreiter on that line has really helped that line as well. I mean, to me, he's like an Andrew Kopp type of guy on that line, and you have Mason Appleton.
He scores 20 goals in his sleep.
Exactly, right? And then you have Mason Appleton, who is kind of like the Brandon Tanev. And if you want to go back and look at 2018, that line, I mean, I did stories on this back then. That line was elite in terms of possession numbers and expected goals. And the reason why they would do that, because all they did was play on the offensive zone, and they grinded teams down. They were so good on offense and defense, because of the fact that they're playing a lot of time in the offensive zone. That's what they're good at. Now you watch that line over the last month or so, and you've seen that again. You're seeing that line play in the offensive zone. They're hard. They grind teams down. They demoralize teams, top lines. Like that's what they're good at. And so Rick Bowness has found that kind of stroke of, I mean, I don't want to call it a stroke of genius, but you have to, he's found the right configuration for that lineup. I think when Niederreiter came in, and because there were some injuries and that sort of thing, okay, he's going to go in the top six, and Cole Perfetti obviously gets injured, so you're like, okay, well, let's put him in the top six and kind of see what that looks like. But I think as they've kind of settled the top line and moved Mark out to the wing and all that, they found that they can play this third line as almost like a second line, right? Or at least in terms of minutes, they can do that, and it's great. It's a great line. It's very good at shutting down the opposition's best. I mean, this was something that Paul Maurice always talked about, this line, and why they were second over the boards and all that kind of stuff all the time. It was because of the fact that they were so effective against top lines across the NHL. They're back to doing that again, and I think that's a huge thing in this playoffs, because you're always going to be playing, especially when you're the 8th seed team, you're going to be playing teams that have multiple top lines, let's say. And so, obviously the top two lines are going to have to, deal with some of the best of Vegas has, but you have that kind of, it's not a third wheel, almost like that third bullet in the chamber that you can throw out there that can really grind down, and they can score. So that's the other thing too. They can score. And then we've seen the fourth line. I think they can contribute. I mean, you talked about Stanley had the goal. I mean, he wasn't the fourth line center last night, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. And that was shorthanded, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But I still think that line's, because Morgan Barron could easily play on the third line on this team, and some believe he could play further up the lineup. But you have a lot of talent right now with this Jets team healthy that you can. We'll see what happens next year, obviously. But with Morgan Barron and Stenlund and Sack, it's a big line. It's a tough line to put out against other teams. They like to be physical. They like all that kind of stuff, and they can do the same thing. It may be less effective, but they can do a lot of the same things in terms of grinding other teams down. And so yeah, the Jets have a really good mix right now. It's a really good top. It's a really good four lines, and we'll see how it matches up against Vegas, because we haven't seen it against Vegas, in this configuration yet. But I like it. I mean, I again, like I said, I like Winnipeg's chances if they can play the type of game they have over the last month. That's just what it is.
One other thing that I love about this, and this is sort of weird because, I mean, we talk about they play games and you want home ice advantage. I actually love that they're starting the first 2 games on the road. I mean, the ability to get a split and then come back to, I mean, what if the Jets get one of those 2 wins? I mean, I can't imagine how bananas that building will be and the city will be when they comes back. But, I think back to the best of 5, and that was where the Jets had home ice against Vegas in the 2018 series. They had that great first game, but then they lost game 2, and all of a sudden they were playing catch up and never were really able to get back into the series. Yeah. So very simple what the objective is for Winnipeg. It's to, get one of the first 2 games and come back, split with home ice in what would be a best of 5 at that point, and really feed off the energy of the crowd. And the crowds have been so good those last 5 games of the year. I mean, the fans have really stepped up, and the players have done it as well. And it's going to be a real exciting week.